Donald Trump nominated at the Republican National Convention today. I'm Chris Cuomo. Thank you for being with me. What a weekend. We dodged a bullet. Imagine where we would be if that shooter aimed just a hair differently. So, now what? I don't know about you, but I promise I'm not going to add to all the virtue signaling going on. I don't have any moral high ground. And I'm not going to tell you what to think or what to feel. There's too much of that. Frankly, it's an ingredient in how we got here, how we got to Saturday. So let me just talk about me. I was really frightened when I watched Trump and the other victims get shot. I don't know how anybody could feel any different way. I heard about it. I was fishing miles offshore, raced to get back to the studio, and I wasn't even sure why. It was Saturday, NewsNation had it fully covered, but I was so worried that we were going to come apart. I ate 4 ice cream sandwiches, Oreo vanilla sprinkle from Carvel. Pure nervous energy, pure desire for succor, S-U-C-C-O-R, everything to be okay. My fear was that, God forbid, if Trump were gravely wounded, it would be a signal to an outraged minority, people who've been buying and being sold an ever darker, scarier version of reality. And once that began, who knows? Now, people say, who knows? This is America, not Egypt. Do you ever think that maybe we give ourselves way too much credit for being civilized? For treating what we have as being unbreakable? And that maybe that's why we abuse each other? Our institutions, our democracy, everything, like a bunch of chimps on a jungle gym? I think our politics are consumed with messing with what matters. Now, I say our politics and not just that we are, because I don't believe that about us. I believe that our politics and social media are exaggerations for effect, political effect. But for me, it's gone too far, and I don't want to be part of it anymore. Now, I'm not saying that people who are complaining don't have real problems. The frustration is real, the pain is real, the disaffection is real, the outrage is real, the fear is real. But I believe that Saturday was a final judgment that playing to the fringes has to stop. It will fix nothing. All you get playing to the fringes is what we just witnessed. This election features the 2 weakest choices for president, just looking at the poll numbers. But Trump's popular. Less than 4 in 10 think he can be believed. 3 in 4 believe Biden's too old. The weakest choices by design, thanks to the 2-party system that's only about a battle to the bottom. They don't care how good their product is, just that the other is worse. This election has some of the most extreme rhetoric by design. The Democrats see Trump as a determined dictator, all the Hitler, all the Nazi. He's at once incompetent, yet to be feared that he could marshal the forces necessary to destroy the democracy. Biden was just asked in yet another gentle interview with NBC about saying to put Trump in a bullseye. He said he shouldn't have used that term. Now, look, I don't think President Biden is the main culprit in our war of angry words, okay? It's odd for NBC to be asking President Biden about the kind of talk he uses when they just canceled their morning cable show for this morning, reportedly for fear of the toxicity that show puts out every morning. Why not interview your own people? The response from the right to the Democrats to complaints about Trump is basically, no, you are, doubling down that it's the Democrats that are the destroyers. Force-feeding a third or so of the country a nightmare that the left is all the boogeymen, making your kids deviants, using government to destroy all who fail to yield like Trump. Sure, I report on it. I pick holes in it. I debate it with the widest array of thinkers that we can find, that I think you can find on cable. But be clear, I don't believe either side because I know they're playing a game. It is a BS game that has gotten way too dangerous and only benefits the parties, their players, and the chattering class. We need to take this, no, I need to take this moment to say what I believe is true. We are still the envy of the world in every way except our politics. Paralyzed and polarized, I heard an international expert put it. Man, is that shameful, but true. We are paralyzed because we are polarized. I think Saturday created an opportunity. Thank God. People are saying this image is the new American memento mori, the reminder that you could die, that life is precious, the reminder of our struggle and determination in an existential battle. I disagree. I believe it is a cautionary tale of the price of poison politics. I thought Trump was so brave with how he handled it, pumping his fist, raising his head when he couldn't know what was waiting for him out there. That was brave. What do we do now? Trump has an amazing chance to reset his reach. Literally took a headshot, unbowed, and he could have a new pitch that appeals to the many instead of the few. I mean, if getting shot in the head doesn't make you think and give you a change in perspective, what would? What easier rationale for him to shift and change? Who better to say that we have to change than the man who was just victimized, a man known for stoking the flames? I was hoping he would contact the shooter's father and try to understand the shooter's mistakes and talk to us about what we need to learn. Instead, he chose Senator J.D. Vance. It's a nod to the same old, an echo of nationalist harshness. Vance's statements since Saturday are among the most absurd and conspiratorial. And yes, I could show you all the horrible things he said about Trump, but that doesn't make him special. I could show you that he came in originally as an explainer with hillbilly elegy, where he was not like that. Now that's all he is. It is exactly what we don't need more of, but that's Trump's choice. Forget Project 2025. You know what we need to bring back? DJT 100. You know what that is? Maybe you did and you forgot. It was the first major initiative of Trump's original term. It was something called DJT 100. Donald John Trump, 100% approval. Jared Kushner was supposed to head it up. It was an effort to make Trump popular with everyone. That was like going to be their signature thing. That's what he wanted to try. Of course, he abandoned it, doubling down on the divisiveness, and then he was fighting for his life. But now he could bring it back. Imagine him coming out and saying, hey, I just took one in the head. No more division. I want to get more legislation done than anyone. I'm a fixer, not just someone who says constantly that the fix is in. Now, we'll know soon if he has any of this in him. If he doesn't, then there's an opportunity in this moment for Democrats. You got to give the first nod to Trump. He is the one who survived this. He is the victim. He is the one with the focus. Stopping Trump is not enough. He is not scarier to a lot of people than they are. That's why this race is so close. People need to be sold something better than they're worse, and this is a moment to do it. The media has a role as well. What do we referee? What do we call out? What do we ignore? It's not always easy. We get it wrong a lot. I know I do. I applaud MSNBC for pulling their morning show today. It's basically an attack dog sicked on the right. Doesn't matter that the host was once a righty. That guy stuck his nose as far up Trump's keister as he could during the election. I know, I was competing against him at the time. Beat his ass twice, too. MSNBC pulled Morning Joe. Reportedly, they were worried that one or all would say something to make the situation worse. Think about that. Think about what an interesting thing for NBC to do, to acknowledge that. Now you got to ask, well, how do you put it back on unless they come back on and say that they're going to change? Now, look, I don't have any control over MSNBC, and I'm not player hating. They're an amazing organization. They do great things. I don't have any control over any outlet or even what happens at NewsNation except when I'm on television. But I'm telling you this, and you can hold me to it. This moment has affected how I see that purpose and what I think matters right now. And I think I have a role in that. And I'm going to keep calling out the game. because it almost got somebody killed. And I don't think we've seen the last of the ugliness. And I know that it's a worthy battle, not just because it's a righteous purpose, but because we are not that shooter. We are not the manifestations of our worst citizens. We are not some magnified minority on social media that gets blown up by a lazy mainstream media. This country is filled with people who live their faith, love mercy, show forgiveness, allow mistakes, fail, forgive, try again, see the best, find solutions, deal with adversity, share strength. That's why we are the envy of the world, because of what this country has managed and imagines, bound only by the mutual respect for opportunity and freedom. We have nothing else holding us together here. We are not type, creed, color. We are everything that's supposed to be a challenge. We are not threatened by some boogeyman or hidden conspiratorial agency. The enemy is us in the manifestation of exaggerating our worst selves. We're seeing it. We're seeing it in our politics. That's why you can't understand what's happening. That's why it doesn't make any sense. That's why you keep saying, what, why, how, what is going on? I know, I hear you. I hear you. It's because this isn't reality. It's an exaggerated form of it for effect, just to position the parties. And it literally almost got Trump killed. And if both sides don't change, there is no change. And if the media and the players in it don't change, then there is no change. And if you don't demand the change and reward the people who change the right way and stop allowing us to treat it like a football game, we're going to see what we saw Saturday again. That's my fear. And I know what I can do, and I'm going to do it. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling you how to think. I'm not telling you how to feel. But I was shook by what happened. And now you know. And you'll be able to see what it meant to me going forward. I am very glad to see that the RNC nominated Donald Trump. Not because I love his policies, not because I love what I think he's going to do with his policies, not because I love how he conducts himself or how he's treated me or my family, but because he has every right to be alive and making his case to the American people in a country that allows the best ideas to win. So Donald Trump is the RNC choice. He named his VP choice the senator from Ohio, J.D. Vance, one of Trump's fiercest critics, now a MAGA convert. Hard to see it as more than convenience. But what does this moment mean to the Speaker of the House? Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com, newsnationnow.com, and you can find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button down below. Then you will get more of News Nation's fact-driven coverage.